The other person could have, let's say, a red mark or a scratch. This is David Kohlmeier, the Problem Solver. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Problem Solver Show. Every single week, I am bringing amazing people on this show to talk about what they're doing in the community to solve problems, to help people. The Problem Solver is me, a retired police officer of 17 years, served in New York City with NYPD, the Henderson Police Department out here in Clark County. Retired for the last 7 years and working in different law firms to help people, whether personal injury, criminal defense, any type of legal cases. And now I am the Problem Solver every single week, Thursdays at 4:30, going live. Eventually, April 3rd, we'll be going to Cox Channel 14. We'll be 300,000 subscribers of Cox in order to get the Problem Solver show, which I'm very excited. We have a progressive web app, which is the problemsolver.vegas. If you're listening, you can later on go on to the problemsolver.vegas. If you're watching, you'll see we have a progressive web app. If you have a problem, you can click on problem. You can tell me whatever problem you have, whether you need a job, whether you got into an accident, you're injured, you need a wheelchair, whatever social type of services that you need. I have the resources to get you help that you need. Tons of nonprofits that I'm working with. Project for Humanity, Nevada Wheelchair Foundation, United Way. So put in the problem, put your name and information. Myself or other problem solvers will give you a call back. We have an amazing number to call if you have a problem. We have 702-999-1111. Normally when you call the police, it's 911, but now you call 999-1111, which is the problem solver, myself and other problem solvers helping people as a resource to help people in Clark County and anybody in the United States that needs some help. I love to help out in general. That's what I do in general. So today, like I said, we're going to have an amazing guest. To the left of me, I have Ronald Hillock, who's an orthopedic surgeon with Nevada Orthopedic and Spine Center. And I'm really glad to have you on the show today. So welcome.
Thank you.
So first of all, I've tried to get more doctors. I've actually had Dr. Alex Hakeem out of California come and talk a little bit about COVID. We wanted to get more doctors on the show, and you just do amazing work in the community. Read a little bit about you. I have a friend that got a new hip. She's running around town, like I got a new hip. And so I wanted to bring you on the show because you're doing amazing things and you're helping a lot of people. You are solving major problems because people that need new hips or new knee replacements, solving that problem is a bigger problem, mobility, than anything else. So, but tell me, Ronald, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you come from. Give us a little bit of background.
Sure. I'm a orthopedic surgeon, board certified. I've been in Nevada now about 14 years in Las Vegas. My practice is focused on adult reconstruction and orthopedic oncology, and that basically is just a more complex version of adult reconstruction. I spent about 17 years in the Army before I entered private practice, and I had a lot of experience with timing that ended up in the global war on terror, as we began to call it. Went to Bosnia, Kosovo, Macedonia, Turkey, Iraqi freedom, and a bunch of places that you've never heard of. And I developed a bit of an experience with some pretty horrific injuries. And it led me to want to develop a system for the treatment of amputation. And that's most of what I focused my last 10 years effort on outside of my primary focus, which is practice, but I've been developing a device called osseointegration.
First of all, it's amazing. So you served 17 years in the Army.
I did.
Now, did you go in as an officer?
I did.
Okay. And did you already have the medical background?
They gave it to me.
So you learned there?
I did something called Health Profession Scholarship Program, and they brought me through. If you're interested in going into medicine, all the branches of the service do it. It varies from year to year as to how much they fund it, but they pay for your entire medical education.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's one of the open secrets of the Department of Defense is that if you're healthy and motivated and have good grades, they will train you as far as you want to be trained.
My wife is a pharmacist by trade, and I know that one of her friends worked for one of the local retail pharmacies, and he went into I think the Air Force, military, just to be an officer, but for pharmacy. And there was really good benefits and so on. As we know, with a lot of civil service jobs have pros and cons for both. But that's amazing. So you were basically paid to go to school.
Yes.
To become a doctor.
Yes.
And I could imagine over 17 years. So how many years would you say that you were in the field where, I guess, if there was explosive devices and so on, that you were actually dealing with the amputees?
Combat deployments total up to about 4.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in 4.5 years, you've probably seen it all.
I was part of a forward surgical team. We got validated for a deployment on the 9th of September, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And we were shortly deployed thereafter. I ended up spending a lot of time in places where bad guys lived.
I feel like you could just probably do a movie just alone on the 17 years of work that you've done. I'm sure you can make 2 hours worth of it, right?
Yeah, it's not just me. There's a whole bunch of us.
I'm sure there's a lot, right?
Yeah.
You're the first one I've met that actually served that in that regards. I mean, I met people that have been soldiers or cooks or, been infantry, Marines, but I never really met someone who's a surgeon. I feel like I watch these movies where you're out in the field and something happens, some explosion, device, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting. The last combat deployment I was on, one of the surgeons who was there with me, his name is Ron Place. He's now the Surgeon General of the Army. He's a 3-star general. And he was a quality guy back then. He's still a quality guy. But they focus talent where it's needed. And somebody who's got the potential to be a general, if you're putting them out forward like that, putting credibility forward.
If you don't mind, I'm not sure if you want to talk about it or not to bring up the past. I was a cop. You were in the Army 17 years, right? Correct. It's actually interesting because I was a cop for 17 years. You heard me probably say that. It's actually an unusual number. I did actually about 4 years in NYPD and then 13 years in Henderson. Makes up 17. 2 police academies. But it's interesting, number 17, we have something in common. Do you mind, with the places that you went to, I guess just to put a little bit of a description of what you've seen, if you don't mind. I mean, if you want to talk about that for a brief minute in regards to, in my mind, I feel like I don't know what Army show that I've seen, but were you out in the field and where there was major combat taking place and you were literally working on the fly? Yeah, so a forward surgical team. Before that, I was part of a mechanized infantry battalion. I was the battalion surgeon. So I was, wherever the unit went, I went with them, basically operating out of the back of an armored vehicle, a 113 or a 557, in support of combat operations. And then you don't get much farther forward than that. That would be the forward edge of troops, forward line of troops. And then in the pure medical units I was in a combat support hospital, which is the modern version of what people may understand as a MASH. I was in the last MASH in the Army, and it got reflagged over as to a combat support hospital. And I was part of a forward surgical team. That's 38 people, basically 2 tents, 4 vehicles, and we ran 2 operating rooms. We had materials to support operations for probably about 72 hours. And in the military terms, we were pretty helpless otherwise. All we could do was surgery. So we had to draw support from the local surrounding units for food, electricity, fuel, transportation. We were there for one trick, and that's to provide combat resuscitation, combat life support. Wow. Amazing. You don't happen to have, I'm sure it's classified or whatever it may be, but videos of anything that you've done? Did you have video? Is it? So when you're actively engaged, you really can't take pictures because you're engaged in it, right? And so I do have some pictures of things where I was watching my peers do surgery and when they didn't need me to do it. And, but actual video, I think the BBC was with us in Bosnia for about a day. And, there's the video. This must be amazing video footage of. Yeah, it's this stuff that you've seen on all the major news networks, and it is combat. It is with the people getting injured, and you're focused on that.
And so you've got to be close to where the injuries have occurred to provide, adequate support.
How dangerous were, like for me, I did work 9/11, happened to be across the bridge in Brooklyn at a train station. How close were you in regards to being in danger? I mean, it may sound like a crazy question, but everyone's different.
So the U.S. operates on something called the air-land battle doctrine. There really is no end to the battle space. It goes up to space, it goes down to the ground, it goes to the ocean, wherever you are. You can never assume that you're not in a threat environment if you are deployed forward. So by doctrine, we should have been in a position where you can hear the battle. And that's a fluid state. So sometimes it's close, sometimes it's far. And when it gets too far, you break down and move forward and move closer to where the battle's occurring.
Okay. I mean, the bottom line is you received amazing experience, helped a lot of, how many soldiers would you say that you've, over 17 years, would you say that you helped?
Oh, it's hard to estimate. The majority of a deployment is waiting for things to happen, and then it's very chaotic once things have happened.
And quick.
Yeah. So, peak of trauma one day, 18 to 20. Sometimes it'd be 1 or 2. Sometimes it's, a week with, nothing but waiting around to play volleyball.
So would you say over 500 people, over 1,000?
Oh, in the thousands.
In the thousands that you've worked on.
Oh, yeah.
You can't get a better experience than that. Sad to say, Quick question for you, actually, since we're talking about it, and people always talk on the show. We talk about different ways of having this show, staying relevant in regards to worldly topics, in regards to what's going on now in general with Russia and Ukraine. Any comments of your personal thoughts of what's taking place? Because you could have your personal opinion in regards to it, but not that I'm like with Ukraine and politics. I'm just curious of what your thoughts are with what's going on.
Yeah, so just what I'm seeing through the news, I don't have any special information sources.
Mm-hmm.
We've moved a lot of people to the Baltic republics. We moved a bunch of planes.
Preparing.
Yeah, and so you hope nothing happens, but that's the reason you keep a spear sharp, is you may eventually have to use it. And I hope peaceful resolution is achieved, but if it's not, that's what the DoD is there for.
It's interesting because, like I said, I'm not like one big into politics, but a lot of movements taking place, and then you got like North Korea, going on. Like it seemed for some reason, whether you were a Trump supporter or not, it seemed things were a little bit quieter, and it seems like a lot more stuff is going on now. Not to get into whole politics, but it just seems there's a lot more stuff going on, and things were kind of quieter previously. Any comment about that, or?
Yeah, I think if you look at history from
things go in cycles too, I guess.
I think from as far back as the early 1800s, the world has been at peace maybe 2 years, where there has not been one country picking a fight with another country. And the momentum of warfare increases, it decreases. But, for the majority of, if you go back to the Marine barracks being bombed in 1983, that's pretty much when the war on terror kicked off. And we've been continuously engaged since that time. We've been in active warfare in Iraq and Afghanistan up until, a few months ago. And that's the better part of 3 generations of soldiers who have known only battle. That's never happened in human history before.
Interesting perspective.
Yeah, and we have professional soldiers who are more trained and more capable than at any other point in human history, probably. Whether we support them, whether we use them appropriately, that's a whole separate issue.
Got it. Interesting. Very, very interesting perspective. I haven't had, we're supposed to have some other military guys that come on. We haven't had that as of yet. We need to get someone. But it is an interesting perspective. So tell me a little bit. So you're with Nevada Orthopedic and Spine Center. So tell me a little bit about that location. How long is that yours? Have you been working there? Like what? Give me the lowdown.
Sure. I'm a partner in a specialty group. There are, I think, 16 of us now. We cover the whole spectrum of musculoskeletal healthcare, hand surgery, pediatric surgery, spine surgery, joint replacement, sports medicine. I do oncology and joint replacement. We also now have a traumatologist. Actually, we have 2 traumatologists who just specialize in fracture and trauma-related care. And the group has probably been in Nevada for about 30 years. And I think we go to every hospital in the Valley. We've got credentials in all of them. And we're a very busy group. We take care of whoever comes our way.
Is it busier now or the Army?
It's the military.
Busy?
Yeah, the military is an ebb and flow. And so some days you're crazy busy, and a lot of the time you're not doing much. You're just prepared. In this environment, it's extremely busy by design. I prefer to have a lot of things to do, a lot of people to take care of. If you talk in terms of full-time equivalents, our business manager, he ran the metrics, and most of us are more than 2 full-time equivalents based on the national averages in terms of workload.
So your big thing is specifically, because our mutual friend Leslie, she mentioned about the amputation. Tell me a little bit about your specialty in regards to, what I heard was the knee replacement and then hip. What is your common, tell me what it's like, what it's like a week in your life, Monday through Friday. Give me a little bit of lowdown. People.
Sure. So a lot of what I do is dictated by the population demand, and there is a baseline level of arthritis in the population due to genetics, due to injuries that dictates everything as far as what's available. So I do a lot of knee replacements. I do a lot of hip replacements. I do tumor cases as they come up. That's
like tumors that are on like bones?
It can be bone tumors. It can be tumors that have spread to bone, which is called metastatic disease. It can be soft tissue tumors in extremities, sarcomas. Actually, most of them are benign, as in not cancerous. But when the patient comes in, they don't know. Everybody comes in pretty frightened, and they see the word oncology and they get glazy-eyed. But and so I'd say oncology at this point is probably about 1/3 of what I do, and that's just a reflection of the population of Southern Nevada. You need about 5 million people to do it full time. I think we're like 2.5, 2.6 million, and so that represents the proportion of patients I get.
So when you say oncology, are you saying surgery to remove?
Well, it's the diagnosis of cancer, the treatment, and definitive reconstructions. So, for instance, if you've got a cancer that has spread to bone, first you got to figure out where it came from, and then you got to figure out what to do for it, and then you got to figure out how to do a reconstruction that will allow the patient to resume activities, to continue to walk, to continue to be independent in their lives.
It's amazing. When you talk about this stuff, I get the chills, but it really is. Really doing God's work in regards to putting these people back together. I had stomach surgery and hernia mesh, from a stomach issue. But think about it, 100 years ago, what did people do? It's like, it's amazing if you think about it, that we're living in a century that people like the iPhone, right? Computer, all this stuff, right? But even just surgery, 100 years ago, people were dying, no one went in and, reconstructed an area in your body, right?
Yeah, joint replacement's been around basically the length of my lifetime. It started in England about the 1960s, mm-hmm. and we have perfected it. We're probably on our 4th or 5th generation of devices and techniques. The outcomes are very predictable at this point, but it's a reflection of the technology that's available, the manufacturing, the pharmacology, our knowledge of how to treat people, the anesthesia support, the post-operative ICU support. There's a bunch of things that got us to where we are today. I just get to ride on the front of the train.
God. So tell me, so we got you're saying a lot of people suffer from arthritis. Is it more for people, the older generation, or is it more deficiency that you see? What do you, if we had to solve that problem in regards to how do we prevent arthritis? Deficiency, vitamins?
Yeah, no, don't we wish? I'd say half of the population will eventually develop arthritis, osteoarthritis. That's the bone arthritis.
As you age.
Yes. There's a small subset that has a disease process called inflammatory arthritis. That's like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis. Yeah, where your body is attacking your joints. Then there's a population is growing a lot recently in the last 10 years where you have an injury that occurred, we treated the injury, and then you develop arthritis from the injury later on, post-traumatic arthritis. That's probably a third of what I do right now. And that's a reflection of how good we are at treating people once they've been injured, and now they live long enough to develop these problems.
You know what upsets me the most these days is that I deal with a lot of personal injury cases by working with different law firms. And what saddens me is, well, first of all, like this last week, 9 people died in that one accident. So that's horrible. But people that get injured and then are hit and run, or they don't have any insurance, and, it makes me upset and also nervous that for people that they can't get the medical coverage, especially if they get into an accident or injured when someone doesn't have insurance or they don't have their own extra coverages. I just feel bad. Now, I guess with social services and Medicare and Medicaid, I guess they help out as well for the general population, or if you go into a hospital, right, to some degree?
Right. So, in the United States, we have the Emergency Medical and Labor Treatment Act, EMTALA, and it obligates all medical facilities and professionals to render care when it's appropriate in emergency situations. So you don't ask their insurance as they come through. Now, as time goes and they need more definitive long-term elective treatment, then the economic issues become more pressing. And so there's the case managers and the social workers who come through after the fact, and they find what resources are available for the patient. But at the time of injury, you're not asking the question about, where's your insurance card? You're rendering care and focus on treating the patient at that point.
All right. So in regards to arthritis, any tips in regards to preventing that? I mean, it goes with old age, vitamins deficiency. Any thoughts of that? We're solving today arthritis right here.
Right here. Right. So I would say the first thing is stop your parents from meeting each other would be a step, because a lot of it's genetic.
Okay.
We don't have time machines, so we can't really go back and change that part.
So before I got married, I should have done like some type of bone structure on my wife to make sure she wasn't deficient of...
A genetic profile, yeah.
Genetic profile. I like that. Genetic profiling before you're married. See, that's a way of solving it.
Yeah, matchmakers could fulfill a role yet.
Genetic profiling. That's a good one. That could be a new website, geneticprofiling.com.
Yeah.
Chase, engineer here, can we check out to see if geneticprofiling.com is available? When you have a moment.
I'm on it.
You're on it. All right.
Yeah,
so basically genetics.
So once you have arthritis, there are things that you can do to help manage the arthritis. Biggest problem in America, pun intended, is weight. We introduced high fructose corn syrup into our diet in the 1960s, and people started gaining weight. And I'm in the club too. I weigh more than I should, way more than the Army would want me to weigh. There's something called the ground reaction force. Every step you take when you make a heel contact
with weight,
5 times your body weight goes through your joints. So if you just lose 20 pounds, you take a 100-pound load equivalent off your joints, you will feel the difference. So weight loss, there's almost no situation where it does not help in musculoskeletal conditions. Then there are things that we can do to help people with arthritis. Canes work really well. Most people don't know how to use a cane appropriately, so a little bit of instruction is required. We can do injections to reduce the discomfort. It's not a permanent fix, but it turns the volume down on the pain. We can do medications to help with the arthritis. And then therapeutic exercise is a big category that people frequently don't want to hear about, but it maintains strength and flexibility, and it actually helps reduce your pain. So if you continue to exercise, work through the pain, you will have better range of motion, you'll have better endurance, and it'll help you lose weight. And then finally, once we've exhausted all of those non-operative things, then we start talking about things like joint replacement surgeries, which are not small undertakings, and you should make sure everything else has been done first.
Good point. So in regards to, by the way, back in the day, people used to say that a lot of people that get older always take, aspirin a day? What's your thoughts with that? Was it take 2 aspirin a day at a certain age or something?
Right. So
I think it's also to prevent heart attacks, right?
So the cardiovascular benefit of aspirin, an 81 milligram baby aspirin per day, helps reduce the risk of blood clots that can be associated with heart attacks and strokes. So that's just as long as you're not allergic to it or as long as you don't have a bleeding disorder, it's a reasonable thing for most people to do is take a baby aspirin a day, 81
One a day.
milligrams. Yep.
80 milligrams.
81 milligrams.
81 milligrams.
And there's multiple different versions of that.
Is there an age, like you're saying, like 40 and over, 50 and over?
I'm not a cardiovascular expert, but I think it's pretty reasonable for folks over 45 to start doing it. I've been doing it since I was 45.
One a day?
One a day.
Do you feel it helps? Do you feel a difference? I mean,
I haven't died of a heart attack.
You haven't. I'm 45 now, and you're making me think I got to take another pill now. An aspirin. I'm getting an old 45. Wow.
Yeah.
So you start. When did you start taking an aspirin a day?
I was about 45.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
I'm 58 now, so I've been doing it for a bit.
You're here, so something's working. It must be that aspirin.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, knee and hip replacement. So do you do more knee replacement or more hip? That's a good question.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I would say it's pretty evenly distributed between. I helped develop some products for other countries, and particularly in Chile, they only do hip replacements. They don't do knee replacements, and it's more economic than it is medical or genetic. It's just they decided they're not going to pay for knee replacements
In Chile,
Yeah, it seems
no
pretty,
knee replacements.
Seems pretty unfair to me.
What happens if you want to pay for it?
You can obtain it, right? But that's not a simple undertaking. That's an expensive surgery.
The knee replacement.
Oh yeah.
And why they don't do the knee, but they'll do a hip?
I'm not sure. I didn't mean to throw stones at Chile. It's just it was pretty funny when I was dealing with their surgeons and manufacturers. It's like, oh no, we don't do knees. All right, well everybody's got two of them.
Interesting. All right, so knees and hip, basically you do 50-50 in regards to that. Tell me, so in regards to the knee situation, I know that you've, am I correct to say, invented something?
Right. So the product that I've been developing, that I've been working on for about 10 years, is for amputation.
Tell us about that.
So it's a process called osseointegration, where the dental industry started with this in the 1960s. A guy named Prevnar Brännmark, he's a Swedish oral surgeon. He came up with the dental implant, and he showed that you could take a threaded titanium device, put it into bone. The bone would remodel and grow onto the device. Osseointegrated, that's where the term comes from. OI for short. About 1990, some of his peers, his son, developed a osseointegrated implant for the femur for transfemoral amputation, above the knee level amputations. And they did the groundbreaking work on their system. It's called OPRA, and they've been doing it in Europe for the better part of the last 30 years. And we were able to benefit from a lot of information they provided. I talked to Professor Brännmark, the son, on several occasions on what we were doing, and he offered encouragement, he offered advice. It's a nice thing about most things in medicine, people still help each other. And instead of a threaded device, we do what's called a press fit design, where we take a CT scan, and through the benefit of CAD/CAM engineering, we can design an implant that will perfectly match the patient's residual femur. And so that when we go to implant it, we do minimal preparation, hollow out the marrow content of the bone, and push the device into the bone and let it rest inside of the femur or the tibia for a total of at minimum 90 days. And then the second stage, we come back and we couple it through the skin through a device called an abutment. And that metal post coming through the skin is now directly anchored to the femur, and it provides a hard point to attach an external prosthesis.
Here's the picture on the TV.
This is a lady who lost her leg in a motorcycle trauma event. She lost her husband in the same event. She's been gracious enough to allow me to show pictures of her recovery. That is a transfemoral level device, and it's anchored into her femur. And
Chase, can you zoom into that at all? Just that spot with the metal.
Let's see. No, hold on.
No.
That's okay.
So what you're saying is the metal rod, right, is
Yes.
going into the femur?
there's a stem that is inserted into the femur, and it's a modular system, so that the device that comes through the skin, the abutment dual cone adapter is the technical term for it, It is designed to have a failure point so that if too much stress is applied, it will break away, a lot like the signs on the freeway, so that the sign doesn't tear through the car, it just pops off.
That's what would happen here?
And if she applied too much torque to this, too much stress, it's got a shear point where it will just pop and fall apart. And it's obviously very disconcerting. We've done just short of 40 of these now, and we've only had 2 that have had to use that mechanism. And the goal is you want to protect the device that's implanted into the femur at all costs, because you can't redo that integrated component. Anything that's external can be modular and can be redone pretty easily.
Not to get graphic, but if that gets snaps, whatever, doesn't that cause a major problem?
Well, you lose the ability to couple, and you're basically hopping on one leg at that point.
And there would be excessive bleeding?
Pretty minimal bleeding.
Really?
The opening through the end of the bone, we call it the stoma. That becomes epithelialized. The lining is a lot like the lining on your mouth by the time we're done. There is some thin, clear drainage that usually occurs. We frequently have a basket that's attached to collect any secretions. If the secretions become too much, then we may be dealing with a moderate infection. And that is the obvious downside of the system, is that you have an opening through the skin that can become infected. You can develop cellulitis.
Does that happen often, or?
It appears to happen to most patients at least once every 2 or 3 years. Most of the time, it's just a process of giving them a short-term oral antibiotic. Occasionally, we have to take them back to the operating room and clean things up and give them IV antibiotics.
It's just amazing that you can even do that. I mean, thank God for even antibiotics to like help clean up the area if there's like an irritation.
Yep.
But it's truly amazing. I'm like thinking to myself, on my knee. Oh God. These days, with also these motorcycle accidents, which I'm sure you see a lot. I mean, it just seems like I got a motorcycle license actually just to, when I would go to other countries, like Barbados, in order to rent a scooter, not a motorcycle, you needed the motorcycle endorsement.
Yep.
So I was here in Henderson, the Harley Davidson, I went through to get the endorsement. But I'm afraid, because it dies out here with a motorcycle. Like, it's like rare for you not to get killed. And as a cop for 17 years, specifically out here, I've been to more motorcycle accidents. These people are just not making it. It's like, it's very scary,
Yeah, I've had a motorcycle license since I was 16. Every accident I've ever had has been under 2 miles an hour, and it's been my fault. Just lose my balance, step in grease, slide out. If you ride a bike, you have to assume no one sees you and do everything to protect yourself.
And everyone says, "Oh, I'm a perfect driver. It's okay." Yeah. I'm like, it's not about you. It's about the other guy who's not going to see you. Actually, even today I was driving. My mirror was a little bit off. I didn't even see the motorcycle guy behind me. Luckily, there was no issue, but I didn't see him. It's just very easy, I think, the blind spots. But I'm just afraid of, I've driven some scooters around town just for fun, on the strip, I always think with that, at least you can kind of quickly, put out your legs and create some stability, but you're only going, 20, 25 miles per hour or something, Yep. But going 50, 60, 70, 80, it's like, it just scares me. A lot of injuries. I'm sure you've seen tons of them, right? Yeah.
And then the new category is the e-bikes. They go almost as fast as a motorcycle, and they have far less protection.
You mean the regular bike just with the electric? With
the electric motor attached.
So you think that's worse, or just more people have that now?
We're seeing a whole lot more injuries come from e-bikes now.
Any type of injuries specifically that are different from that, or same thing?
A lot of head injuries, a lot of broken bones.
What about with the whole, kind of like the, what do you call it, the Segway thing, with the,
The first week I was practicing in Las Vegas, I had a Segway multi-vehicle trauma event where a family got tangled up on their Segways, and I think in 4 people we had 6 fractures.
I've always wanted to buy one. They even sell them at Costco these days. The Segway scooter, And again, I'm a little bit afraid of that too. It's fun, but again, the other drivers, these days, I think what happens is these days you're gonna probably eventually in the future that if you have the bicycle that's electric or the other ones, you're gonna need like insurance. Because even with, back in the day when I first came out here 20 years ago, for scooters you didn't need a helmet and you didn't need insurance. Now I believe you need the helmet, and I think you need insurance. I don't even know if it was like 49 cc's and less or something like that. But things have changed from 20 years. So, who knows the future, because there's a lot more on the roadway.
Yep.
Question for you. So you have another video as well. What is that? Video picture?
So this is another one of my patients who he's about 4 months out. He had an osseointegrated stem placed into his femur. And this is a follow-up visit in my office, and he's showing us how he's walking.
So how long does it take? Is this the one with the rod as well?
Yes.
What do we call that again? What's the terminology?
That is an osseointegrated stem.
Okay.
And the system that is used, the manufacturer is Sydney Orthopedics out of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And this system is called the Patriot, and we will be manufacturing it in the United States soon.
So first of all, how long did it take for him to walk? Did you mention 3 months? Did someone say 3 months?
This is at 4 months after surgery, after the second stage coupling. He was walking that evening after the surgery.
In pain?
A little bit, more apprehensive. He was using muscles he hadn't used in several years. He also was a motorcycle trauma event. He got hit twice in one day. Got hit, fell down on the freeway, got up, got hit again. Yeah, in LA.
Was he not in a car?
He was on a motorcycle. Yeah.
So he got hit, and then he was standing up and got hit again?
Correct. Twice in about 5 minutes.
So he lost a leg.
Yes. The second hit was much more traumatic. He had skin grafts. He had burns. It was a pretty awful scenario for him. But so why would I want to develop osseointegration? He had the traditional style suction socket system, which is what people are used to for amputation, where you put on a silicone sleeve and then you put it inside of like a fiberglass shell, and that's how you couple to your prosthesis. He had constant skin problems. It was inefficient. It was painful. It was hot. And these are the common words that we hear from most amputees. Is it to wear that suction socket suspension? 80% of them at any one time have blisters, have calluses, have ingrown hairs. And it's painful, and they can't wear them for more than 3 or 4 hours at a time. The system that you saw there, he's wearing that coupled for 16, 18 hours a day. He wore it on a jet ski. He was able to return to jet skiing. He's able to walk and stand, go through a grocery store, doesn't need a cane or a crutch or a walker, not taking any pain medication, doesn't have to deal with the whole heat of the suction socket. There were studies that were published where we looked at the energy consumed in walking for an amputee. And if you look at the transfemoral level with the suction socket system, the old school silicone sleeve inside the fiberglass shell, their energy consumption is 150% greater than an age-matched peer. To walk through a grocery store for them is like running a 5K. With the OI device, the energy consumption is equal to age-matched peer. They are more fluid in their movement. And we've found another benefit where the patient with the suction socket system, when they walk, they have trouble telling when the heel has contacted the floor. They have trouble with the various surfaces that they're walking on. So they have to over-exaggerate the movement and slam the leg down, the prosthetic leg, to get the shock wave back through their limb so that they know where they're standing and how they're moving. It also helps lock the knee device out if it's a mechanical device. The electronic devices need the feedback to know when to fire the servos to lock the knee out. With the OI device, they report that when they touch surface with the heel of the prosthesis coupled, they can tell you what the surface is. So if they're touching gravel, if they're touching grass, if they're touching concrete, if they're touching tile, they get the tactile response through the bone that they know what they're touching. And that gives them the confidence to move much more fluidly, probably one of the reasons why they have much lower energy consumption. It definitely makes them more stable and safe. They don't have to use assisted devices. Yeah, I have some of my patients who are actually wearing this to bed because they don't want to hassle with putting it on to get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night.
So you can remove it.
It clips on and off. There's a fast release mechanism for coupling.
Do a lot of people take it off?
Most people take it off to bathe. Most people take it off to go to the bathroom or when they're resting in the evening.
Is it just helps rest the body, or does it?
No, it's just one less weight that's pulling on them, so to speak. They can roll over in bed more easily. They don't have to worry about the prosthetic being tangled up in the sheets.
Okay. So you're calling it the Patriot, right?
The manufacturer signature has come up with the name Patriot for the system.
So here's what, did that not exist before?
Well, this concept of a press fit device that's not threaded into the bone, this is new. There was a system in Europe that we looked at. I believe the manufacturer's name was ESCA. They shared their information with us. We took it the next step farther and put our own twist on it, manufactured differently, shaped differently. It literally matches the bone perfectly. It's custom made for each patient and only that patient. And it's the technology of being able to do 3D rendering and put that into a CAD/CAM CNC machine to be able to print these devices. It's not technically printed, but it is cut. It's forged titanium. And I'm not a metallurgist. The manufacturing is not my expertise. I just know they do some amazing things with it. They can make almost any shape or design I ask them to make.
When will that eventually? So right now, where is it being made now?
Currently, it's manufactured in Australia, Sydney, Australia. We hope to have a manufacturing facility in the U.S. in the very near future. I've heard words about Tennessee. I've heard words about Oregon. It's not my lane.
Is this considered your invention, or is it more of your advancement? What would you call it?
So I was involved in the design.
Okay.
I'm part of the intellectual property of the device. I have a royalty position on devices sold.
Okay.
We are capitalists. I will make money on it.
Okay, that's good. Well, it's amazing work that you're doing. All right, so quick question for you. So let's just say I wanted the Patriot. Let's talk numbers just to be interesting, So first of all, if I wanted just to buy the Patriot eventually in the future, like I want to go buy it, what does something like that cost the average person? We're not talking about surgery and getting it set up. Just what does something like the device cost?
Right. So the economics of osseointegration. Currently, the devices that are available internationally, if you want to go to Sweden and get the original system, you have to live there for 6 months. That's a considerable expense. You must pay for the coverage of the procedure because you're not part of the Swedish healthcare system. I've heard numbers in the neighborhood of 120 to 160,000 euros, which is close to $200,000, in addition to your room and board and transportation costs to get there. If you wanted to go to Australia to get this, I've heard the number of about $120,000 for a single limb. They're doing it in one stage so that you can get it done within like a 2 or 3 week period. Their device is not custom for the patient. Their device is off the shelf. With this particular system, we don't have a number yet. We ask for insurance companies to help us. We've gotten cooperation from almost every insurance company we've gotten in front of. The actual costs that have run in the U.S. with me doing the OI device, I'd say it's usually in the neighborhood of $40,000 to $60,000.
The 40 to 60 with the device or just the surgery?
That's device, surgery, facility, anesthesia, consultants, medications.
So $40,000 to $60,000 to get this in America.
Correct. And give you some comparison. What does a suction socket cost for an above-the-knee amputee? It's about $80,000, and it has to be refashioned every 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. This is one and done. No further costs with the suction socket. You don't have to worry about if the patient gains weight or loses weight. You don't have to worry about anything else. Once that's in and anchored, it's good to go for the rest of the patient's life.
We didn't talk about this before, but Leslie, our friend, mentioned as well that if someone had the socket, am I saying it correctly? That what happens when you have that, where it's problems or irritation or blisters?
So if you develop problems in a suction socket, your only option is to discontinue use of the device.
You have to discontinue it.
Yeah, because it's too painful, it's too irritating to continue to use it. So most patients with that type of a system only use it for, 4 to 6 hours per day. Most of the OI patients are using it 12 to 18 hours a day. That's a clear advantage.
It's really amazing, just the advancement of it, right?
Just for quality of life, I think it's pretty amazing. The sad thing is it's not available to all amputees. It's a select subset that get it.
How, what percentage that's so select?
So the most common reason for amputation in the West, in America today, is peripheral vascular disease, tobacco and diabetes-related complications. This device does not work well or will not work in those patients because they're going to develop infections. They're going to have lots of problems.
Specifically diabetes, right?
Yes. And so we're hoping to get to the point that if it's tightly controlled diabetes, as in their sugar is good through medical management, that we'll be able to offer that. We're in an investigational phase, so we're only doing this right now for people who have traumatic amputations, amputations from accidents, people who have amputations due to failed surgery, they're otherwise healthy, people who have congenital malformations, like the foot didn't develop the way it should, so the leg is taken off above the knee, and then they have to use a prosthesis. And then the last category would be people who have tumor-related amputations, because the limb couldn't be salvaged and you had to do an amputation to save their life. And that's what initially got my attention in the civilian world, was the tumor application, but I did plenty of military amputations in very healthy young people that could benefit from this. Walter Reed has been working with the OPERA system out of Sweden now for, I think, at least 10 years. Several of those surgeons who were my peers have retired, and they've gone to other centers on the East Coast, and they're offering that service now as well with the threaded device, the OPERA system. I think our device offers some clear advantages over the threaded system. I'm not throwing stones at anybody, but innovation, you have to have competition. I think we have something better going here. I would very much like to be able to bring this to the military veteran population. There's over 6,000 battle-related amputees that have occurred since 9/11. About 40% of those are unable to use a regular prosthesis. They're in a wheelchair or they're hopping on crutches. And my goal is to be able to join in treating them with the device to give them back function that they lost due to their service.
So what's the time frame for something like that to happen? I mean, first of all, it's amazing what you're doing. It's unbelievable. What's the time frame that you think that you can make that difference in those guys' lives? You said 6,000 soldiers since 9/11 with amputations,
Yes.
and you think 40% of the people could use the Patriot?
I think 40% of them can't use conventional suction socket systems.
Okay.
And I would like to make the Patriot available to them. I'm sorry, what was your question again?
What's the time frame
Time frame.
to get to these 40%, right? That's what I
Right.
think, the 40%?
So with OI systems, that's an investigational device, so we have to have really clear timelines. They have to have failed a suction socket. They have to have proven that they're having the problems I've already mentioned. And so we're looking at a minimum of a year to 18 months from the time of their amputation before they're ready for OI. There is a scenario in the future where the limitation will be the time of manufacture. And right now that's about 6 weeks. From the time I send the CT scan in till they send me a proof, till they make the thing, it's about 6-week exchange.
So here's a question. They will have to, do you think, well, I guess it's going to be the future for insurance purposes or for the veterans. Do you think they can automatically go to the OI, or do you think that they have to try the suction first?
As it stands right now, they have to try the suction socket
it's
first.
cheaper.
It's the only thing available to them.
Okay.
It's actually not cheaper. It's more expensive.
Okay. So you think in the future, if they'll be assessed of which one they should use?
I think
Well, they'll have a choice.
Yeah, and I think it's realistic to see a scenario where they've had the amputation, the wound is healed. Hey, this technology is available. Would you like to try it? I think you'll benefit. And maybe not everybody will want it. It's a free choice.
So just to recap. So by the time this comes out, we're talking about, let's just say 2,500 people that are veterans that could use it. What did we say about the time? I think we missed it. The time frame, you think it's 2 years from now, 3 years from now?
From the point of amputation till they're a candidate for OI is a minimum of a year.
But is it available now?
It is available currently. Combat operations have dropped way off, so I don't think we're getting soldiers injured at the moment. Hopefully it stays that way.
But from the previous people, for the 40% that we have that could use the Patriot, can they get it now?
Yes. It
Okay.
is available now. We've worked out the mechanism through TRICARE, through the VA.
Is it just recently? Like how recent? Is it being offered now to those 2,500?
So it is not a fully cleared FDA device.
Okay.
It's considered an investigational device.
Got it.
So we have proven safety and we have proven concept, and they have given us permit to make as many as people will consent to use within the parameters of a study.
The
And so
investigative
Correct.
stages.
an IDE.
So when do you think it'll get FDA approved? That's the question I guess I was getting at. Could be a year? Or?
I'm eternally optimistic. I thought it was going to be last December. COVID has put a damper on all things committee related. So we continue to accumulate data. The manufacturer has been given specific information requests by the FDA. They've gotten positive feedback. There are other devices that the OPRA device is completely cleared by the FDA now. So we hope to use that as a predicate, as in this has worked, ours is as good or better, and so please let us move forward.
So the bottom line is, I try to bring on other problem solvers on the show. You are clearly a problem solver, more than probably I am. Even though what's interesting is this, I always feel that a lot of people just don't know about what's out there. Like clearly, why I bring you on the show is because we have this hour long, and it goes out. Even if it goes out to, I mean, we've gotten up to 12,000 views on social media in regards to Facebook and in general for the problem solver. But this is specifically that needs to be boosted to people that have amputees, because I don't think people are really that knowledgeable about what you're doing in the future. So I think it's amazing the work that you've done. You're helping people with mobility, which is amazing. People that are losing body parts compared to, and plus all the other stuff that you're doing. And if you could help the 2,500 guys and women that have lost a leg during the military, God bless. If you could help them live a better quality of life, God bless you for that. We have about like 5 minutes left. I guess my question is this: what am I missing in regards to everything that you do? The bottom line is that you're doing an awful lot. You're helping a lot of people. I think we're blessed to have you here in Las Vegas. Hopefully I don't need any amputation anytime soon.
I hope you don't.
I already had stomach surgery over 12 years ago. It was more than enough, and some hernia mesh in me, but God's giving me my fair share of issues. But I'm alive and breathing. So anyone that needs help in regards to knee surgery, hip surgery, anything of orthopedic, you're definitely the guy to go see. But what am I missing in regards to what you do? Anything else you want to share over the next 4 or 5 minutes that we have left?
Sure. I'm in a big group for a reason, because I can't solve all the problems. Mm-hmm. I have peers who have subspecialized who are willing to and want to help you in other areas. So if something comes to me that I don't have the subspecialty skill for, I'm usually in clinic with somebody who does. I mean, we do lateral transfers of patients on a regular basis. The take-home message here is that if you've got a musculoskeletal complaint, I'm pretty sure my group can take care of it.
It's interesting. For myself being a retired police officer, I'm not an attorney, so a lot of people call me all the time for, I would say, legal advice. And I don't give legal advice because I'm not an attorney. But I want to have resources and people that are good with communication and so on, like lawyers that actually pick up the phone or respond back to a text message. And I'd like to be the liaison in between people to make things happen to help people, just like when I was a cop for 17 years. That's why if you look at the phone number, the 911 and 999-111, is that I feel like I'm a problem solver, just like being a police officer. And even though I'm not in uniform, just like you're not in uniform any longer, the goal is to help people. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I did create the Las Vegas Legal Network. I was the founder of the network, so I can refer people to different attorneys that are good people that also would provide, free services, pro bono, some free representation to help people to betterment of society. And actually, I mentioned before we started, I'm actually creating the Las Vegas Medical Network, having different doctors and so on, like good people like yourself that want to help people, that are giving back, that are creating things, that are willing to even do some type of free surgeries and free things to help people that have no insurance or down on their luck or whatever the situation may be. But that's my goal with the networks. And I would love to actually have you part of the Las Vegas Medical Network in regards to referring people. Because, sitting here talking to you, the work that you're doing and that you've done is amazing. And other people should know about you. And I'm sure a lot of people don't know about you. Not everybody has a billboard with their picture smiling with their beautiful face on there, So tell the listeners. I know it's funny. My cousin Steven, who I hardly see, he lives in Henderson. It's very far away in Henderson, and we're in Vegas. He loves to listen, which is funny. He's on like Spotify and the podcast,
Sure.
So he's always listening. But some people just watch it on social media, and some people are listening in general. What is your main phone number? Give us some contact information. We'll throw it up on the screen as well, but give it over the air as well. My cousin Steven's going to write it down right now.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up.
We have the website, Chase.
Yeah.
If we want to throw that up there, we can see. So it's Nevada Orthopedic and Spine Center.
Yes.
And we have Ronald Hillock, orthopedic surgeon. So if you want to meet with him.
Yeah, if you go to the website, you've got multiple different ways to contact. We obviously have phone. We have a texting option. We have an email option.
Okay.
We have a portal for patient engagement where once you're an established patient, you can get your records, you can get your x-rays, you can get your reports if you're going to talk to a subspecialist. But everything should be driven through the website. And there's a button on there for the various subspecialties if you wanted to contact one of us directly. if your primary care doctor wants to make a referral, we're happy to entertain anybody who wants to be evaluated. Sure, you talk about the Medical Problem Solver Network. Yeah, I'm happy to be part of that. There's very few people these days who have absolutely zero resources. They may not know how to get the resources, and we can help them with that. But the unfunded patient that used to exist when I was here first 14 years ago, I don't see those anymore. I see people who the paperwork says that we haven't defined their funding yet, but the case managers, the social workers, the state exchange, we can find somebody funding. We can find somebody resources if they need treatment.
Well, Ronald, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Hopefully the listeners and viewers, great information. I will share something with you. Whenever I come on the show, and these days is more organic, I'm always thinking to myself, like, can I talk about this stuff for an hour? We basically did an hour, especially orthopedic surgeon. Like, what can you talk about? But it's very interesting because you talk about this stuff. You could talk about this probably for longer than an hour, more than 2 hours. But I'm glad that we got a lot of useful information. So it was great. I really enjoyed actually having you and talking to you about it, especially with your background of Army, 17 years. Again, thank you for your service. And you truly, people thank me as a police officer, which knock on wood, thank God I'm alive and I'm breathing and I survived it. But for the work that you did in the Army, you truly made a difference. And I think that the listeners and viewers would agree that it's amazing your career and the work that you've done, and that you're still helping people in the civilian world now. And I think that for Las Vegas, as Las Vegas Strong, I think we're blessed to have you helping anybody that needs any type of surgery. And I know from just looking at you and looking into your eyes that you would help anybody on the street that was injured. So God bless you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Not to get into the whole spiritual and religious thing, but like I said, people thank me for the service. And I'm like, yeah, I was a cop in the street. I was helping people, but like it's for you. I mean, you literally, you're saving people's lives, at a different level.
Well, yes, that is the occupational requirement, is that you have to be willing to help people. And I don't know any doctors who aren't willing to help people. I never considered it a burden. It was inconvenient to be deployed. It was inconvenient to go to some of these places, but it was never not what I wanted to do. And I actually feel lucky to have been able to do most of it.
No, it's amazing.
The food was pretty terrible.
Well, definitely like to have you back on the show in the future. I really, like I said, enjoyed having you today, and we'll talk more in the future. And I want to take you out for a nice lunch to thank you for all the work that you've done in the community.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I am David Kohlmeier, the problem solver. Every single week, amazing people like Ronald Hillock, orthopedic surgeon, helping people in the community, doing amazing work, saving lives. To me, the work that I've done as a police officer for 17 years and now as a problem solver, helping people get social services and referring people to the right place, Ronald definitely has gone above and beyond for the community and for the military and for protecting our country. So every single week, again, 4:30 on Thursdays, the problem solver goes live. If you have any problems, concerns, accident, injuries, someone gets arrested, you need any help, I have tons of resources. People that can help you. You can go to the problemsolver.vegas, which is a progressive app. You can add it to your home screen. Any type of problem, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I am picking up my phone at 4 a.m. with my babies next to me, asking, talking to you and trying to, resolve your problem. You can test me out at 4 a.m. Call 702-999-1111. Again, 702-999-1111. Please be safe, and we'll see you next week. Have a good one.